Why is China taking over the world while we sleep, and what can we do to profit off their actions in the meantime? In this video, we explore and answer all of these questions related to our powerful enemy and sometimes friend out east. Political alliances manifest themselves in many ways. The United States of America maintains diplomatic relations with nearly every single UN state except for Bhutan, Iran, North Korea, Syria, and the partially recognized state of Palestine. This list, however, constantly changes, and not too long ago, China was part of this exclusive group of countries that had no official communications with the US. You see, after the Cultural Revolution and the rise of communism, China entered a period of complete isolation from the outside world and vocally denounced both the US and Soviet Union. It was not until 1972 that the silence was broken when President Nixon traveled to the People's Republic, and slowly, over time, China was opened to the US. The normalization of relations brought huge changes to the region, especially in the period after 1990. China blew up economically in a way that shocked the world. This is a picture of Shanghai in 1992, and this is one 30 years later. With this rise to power, the Chinese became more and more powerful, and by the mid-2000s, it was clear that the country had become a serious superpower with immense capability. In today's video, we examine China and how its slow and gradual goal of worldwide domination is beginning to threaten the United States and regions throughout the world. We start with China's pseudo-colonization, a plan that by many is considered a subtle modern way for superpowers to take over regions without wars or arms. We begin with Africa. Just take a look at this clip by YouTuber Wendover Production on how China is using infrastructure to essentially colonize Africa.
Since that 1971 vote, you see, something has changed. In 2007, the UN General Assembly met once again to vote on whether to adopt a resolution condemning the human rights situation in North Korea. As one of North Korea's strongest allies, this vote was China and its sphere of influence versus the world. In this vote, though, only Burundi, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Ghana, Kenya, Lesotho, Liberia, Madagascar, Malawi, Mauritania, and Tanzania voted against China. All the 43 other African countries either abstained or voted no along with China because in the 40 years between these votes, political ties changed. Africa no longer bows to the US. Much of the continent is now economically and politically aligned with the world's fastest emerging superpower, China. The simple answer for why this is because China has pumped huge amounts of money into the continent of Africa. They're buying allies. For example, China built a $3.2 billion railway in Kenya trekking the 300 miles from Nairobi, the capital, to Mombasa, the second largest city and primary port, in 4 hours and 30 minutes. That's faster than what the fastest train in the US, the Acela Express, takes to travel the equivalent distance from Philadelphia to Boston.
This grand plan is the vision of leader and forever President Xi, a man who is dead set on embedding his legacy around the world. His recent actions have caused serious concerns here in the United States, prompting political figures to take action, most recently with the Trump administration, whose hardline approach to China was considered extreme by many. Right from 2016, it was clear that the US was going to take a more hardline approach to the superpower, and this speech by Vice President Mike Pence showcased just that. Take a listen.
People sometimes ask whether the Trump administration seeks to decouple from China. The answer is a resounding no. The United States seeks engagement with China and China's engagement with the wider world, but engagement in a manner consistent with fairness, mutual respect, and the international rules of commerce.
But it wasn't just the Trump administration who saw the country begin to wreak havoc around the world. By the time Barack Obama had taken office, the Chinese were already beginning to interfere with many aspects of the US political, military, and business apparatus. US companies began to complain of Chinese corporate espionage. A country with no regards for safety, environmental regulations, and political implications began to use this privileged position to take advantage of certain aspects of democracy. You can hear Obama talk about it here in this New York Times interview.
You know, China today is the biggest energy investor in Iraq. Right? At some point, I mean, do you say to them or want to say to them, you know, it's time you become a stakeholder in this system and not a free rider?
I do say that to them. And they are free riders. And then they've been free riders for the last 30 years, and it's worked really well for them.
Yeah.
And I've joked sometimes when my inbox starts stacking up. I said, can't we be a little more like China? Nobody ever seems to expect them to do anything when this stuff comes up. But it's for that same reason that I think people look to America in ways that they don't look to China. They recognize that in the annals of human history, it's been pretty rare for a superpower to, yes, act in its own self-interest, yes, occasionally make mistakes, yes, think in terms of what's in it for us, but also more often than any time in human history, a big superpower saying, you know what, what's in it for everybody? How does this help other people? How should we act in a way that is reflective of our values? And that's not how the Chinese operate. Now, that's a disadvantage for us in many ways.
Now in 2020, China is on its way to become the most dominant economy in the world, following an epic rise out of the pandemic that has doomed much of the world. The Chinese are now building artificial islands, contributing to foreign infrastructure projects, building cutting-edge technologies, most of which were stolen, and pushing influence to every single corner of the world. Many have begun to raise serious concerns, claiming the country is attempting to weaken the West in hopes of becoming the worldwide superpower. News segments like this are now common.
Now, those aren't simply legal disputes. They have actual consequences for millions of American workers, on our standard of living, on what your kids will do for a living. Ratcliffe noted that in 2018, a Chinese wind turbine manufacturer ripped off trade secrets from a Massachusetts-based infrastructure company called American Semiconductor. As a direct result of that theft, American Semiconductor lost over $1 billion in value and had to cut 700 jobs. Now, that didn't happen because the company, American Semiconductor, was careless. It happened because they were the victim of theft.
So what does this all mean? This is an investing channel after all, and while China's rise to world domination is unfortunate, the real question is how do we profit? While this may seem like an ethnically questionable investment, why not profit off these macroeconomic trends that we see developing right in front of our eyes? While Google, Amazon, Apple, and Facebook are at evaluations that represent sky-high PE ratios, Chinese giants like Alibaba are still relatively undervalued after years of struggling Chinese-American relations. Now, with a new administration that appears to be much friendlier to the East, these stocks are going to look really good in the next year. One of the best, Alibaba, is ripe for an explosion in price in 2021. Baba currently trades for $260 a share, giving it a market cap of $703 billion. While this may seem immense, it's nothing compared to American giants like Amazon. Looking over their 2021 outlook, you can see that this company has a long-term vision. They even post their goals for 2036, 15 years from now. They want to serve over 2 billion global customers and create over 100 million jobs. Just like Amazon, revenues are constantly increasing. The year-over-year revenue increase was 32%, and this number will likely grow as the Chinese economy continues its ascent into the stratosphere. With a population well over 1 billion, many of which are just now entering the middle class for the first time, this company is primed for a revenue explosion. On top of this, Alibaba is constantly improving its marketplace outside the People's Republic with AliExpress, and what seems to be a loosening of tensions by the United States, this side of the business will likely grow as well. Just as Amazon has done in the United States, Alibaba is also expanding other parts of its enterprise, strengthening its digital media sector, and most importantly, its cloud computing sector, which is set to compete with AWS in Asia and around the world. Despite some recent bad news regarding the CEO and other aspects of its business, I think Alibaba is a growing giant that I will be long on for a while. Thank you guys for watching, and please make sure you hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed.